I did not want to like this league, but after a very late league start, I've gotta admit, the game is fun. Last league completely broke my interest in playing Path of Exile, and I was genuinely having a great time playing other games for a change, but like a week ago, a friend of mine who's kinda new to PoE, he's only got some 300 hours or so, so about as much of a beginner as it gets, right? Just kept asking me questions left and right about what this and that item do, and how to improve his build and all that jazz, and just so you know, Nigel, it's all good, dude. I'm not singling you out or anything. Path of Exile is complicated. Anyways, one thing led to another, and here I am with full Atlas completion, level 94, and completely hooked on this gameplay loop once again that no other game provides quite like PoE does. Also, the fact that you guys seem to really enjoy the lore summary I made kickstarted things too. And yes, for those wondering, I am working on a follow-up, so stay tuned for that. Now here's the question. Are we currently playing peak Path of Exile? Like, is this the best state the game has ever been in? If we just take a look at player numbers, then yeah, things are looking really good in terms of long-term player engagement, but I don't think that numbers tell the whole story. Now, first of all, regardless of if it is or isn't, I'm glad that we're in a state where this discussion can genuinely be had. I don't think there's any doubt about this. Settlers of Kalguur is one of the better leagues in recent memory. Don't get me wrong, Trial of the Ancestors was a fun league with an interesting mechanic that quickly became less interesting once people figured out builds that more or less trivialized it, and Affliction was absolutely bonkers, and perhaps the most memorable league thanks to the wide access to more loot than we'd ever experienced up to that point, at least as solo players. But for me, it was a first step in the wrong direction towards having to mega juice everything, making maps much more challenging and limiting build viability in the process. Kalguur takes a step backwards in terms of difficulty and juicing, introduces some new quality of life features, a whole town management system, which I'll get into in a bit, and somehow also focuses on the core PoE endgame progression loop with new skill balance and new base items, while still keeping T17s, which were introduced in Necropolis, which are divisive amongst the community to say the least. I can't really touch on them much myself, having only done one, and I thought it was fine, although once I reached the ghosted boss, I had a good laugh. That said, rerolling mods for ones your build can do sounds pretty daunting. But seriously, T17s aside, Kalguur actually has made great strides towards making the endgame more enjoyable for me, and I'm sure many of you. The currency exchange system on its own is freaking long overdue, but man, I am so glad it's finally here. I've been asking for this for years, and I'd argue I'd love to see it taken a step further, but honestly, it's the single best new feature to the game since the invention of the Atlas tree, IMO. GGG. Please don't take it away, or I'm gonna cry. The fact that at any moment I can just buy the materials I want for a craft, or juicing a map, or whatever it may be, instantly is a complete game changer and leads to me spending more time in game than I otherwise would have, because I don't have to waste literal hours of my life every league just trying to whisper a bunch of people so I can buy a stack of essences or something. Likewise, selling things on the market is just as easy. You just have to be careful with the auto-updating ratios, which can screw you over if you're not paying attention, but yeah, it's lovely. Say I have a cool scarab worth 1 divine. I can sell said scarab for a divine right away. Where has this been my entire life? Anyways, I want to touch on builds and the whole melee rebalance and all that. Guys, I cannot express how happy I am to hear that GGG listened and got around to helping melee out for the first time in, well, what feels like years. Now that said, I am a little sad that every other build video out there is another variation of Lightning Strike, arguably the least melee of the melee skills, but hey, I get it, it's strong and people are drawn to it, like really drawn to it. All in all, I think the melee changes are a massive win. Also, the Glad rework, sheesh, it is so tanky, dude. My first character of the league was an Eviscerate Retaliation Gladiator, and I made it to level 81 in Hardcore for the very first time in years. I mean, it practically played itself. I got one-shot by the Ghosted Forbidden Woods bosses in case you were wondering what did me in. For my recent softcore league start, I went for a cast while channeling Whispering Ice Trickster, and I'm still rocking it now. It had a bit of a rough start, it being an int stacker, and with stat stackers typically not being the cheapest builds to get going, but eventually it scaled up and is now in a place where I'm just having a lot of fun spinning through every map like a ballerina and making ice fall from the sky while leeching thousands upon thousands of energy shield per second. It's a freaking blast. Anyhow, I love that the meta did shift pretty significantly this time around, and I hope GGG tries to keep that up semi-regularly. I'm aware that they've got PoE 2 on the horizon, so that's a huge question mark in terms of how will PoE 1 leagues look like moving forward, but hopefully the community is community's overall good reception of the shakeup is enough of an indicator to them that this is something they should look to do more often. Also, just a little something extra real quick, not having to fit in determination and or grace in every single build is freaking liberating, dude. Hell, the addition of the new item bases is a huge improvement. I'm sitting on nearly 14k ES now on my Trickster, and that feels freaking absurd and wonderful at the same time. Now here's the part you've all been waiting for, a classic Schwingy hot take. I don't like Kingsmarch. I think it's tedious, I think it slows down the pace of chaining maps too much, and I think it's not very fun. Now granted, my town isn't fully leveled, actually not even close. I still haven't unlocked the sending people to certain doom by running maps for you mechanic yet, but yeah, I don't mind that it exists, and I'm glad overall people seem to be enjoying it, but personally for me, not a fan. And it's not even a question of the rewards not being good enough or anything, I just couldn't care less about hopping around through the various menus to try and optimize my production of wheat and minerals and all that. It's just not my jam, and that's okay. Gold, on the other hand, I think is pretty cool. I use it to make trades on the currency exchange market and of course to upgrade the town and pay my workers fair wages to my chagrin, although I'd happily replace the whole town thing with just trying to gambit my gold away on the black market if there was an actual incentive to doing that. I do hope gold stays. So yeah, all things considered, despite really not jiving with Necropolis League and essentially being of the opinion that maybe Path of Exile isn't for me anymore, I think I'd be a fool not to praise the game when I think it's in a good spot. Good job, GGG, keep it up. I can't say for certain that this is peak PoE for me. I mean, I still hold both Parandus League and Delirium in very high regard, but I wonder how much of that is just nostalgia and how much was a genuinely good time. What do you guys think? Are you fans of this town management mechanic and hope that it sticks around? Let me know down below. Hit the like button for the algorithm, and yeah, I'll leave you off with my best drop of the league so far. Yeah, I sold those for 6 divines.